Now that we've finally got our towers, I think that we should actually have them fire at the enemies. That seems to be a sensible next thing to do. So we need to go to where the tower's created and have it start using some sort of alarm. So that'll be in the key, no, the mouse press, right here when we create a tower. Well, when we change its state to a no tower to a tower 1 or 2. Once we do this, let's actually, well, let's change that alarm. I think I'm going to have my tower 1 fire every 2 seconds, and tower 2's will fire every 1 second. That'll be one of the differences between the two. Now once that alarm goes off, I should actually fire some sort of projectile. So once we go inside of here, if the alarm object dot, let's see, was it a class tag or an ID tag? I'm using ID tags for this. ID tag is a tower 1. And actually, I think I use tower in general, so class tag is a tower. And then we'll find the specific tower in here. I'm going to highlight all that and tab it over. I do that so that I can see where the if statements begin and end. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to keep track of where the close braces go. So if I'm tower 1, then I'm going to reset my alarm. And I believe I said 2 seconds for this one. And now I need to find out whether or not I'm going to attack an enemy. So to do this, I'm going to have to walk through the enemy list and then check the distance. So let's walk through the enemy list. I believe it was list max. And then I need to find its distance. I could do this in one step, but just to make the lines of code shorter, I'm going to do it in where I grab the x and y components of the triangle I'm looking at, because Pythagorean theorem requires those 2 legs. So this is going to be the alarm object dot x minus the enemy list dot x. And because Pythagorean theorem squares the number, it's not going to matter the sign of it. Alarm object dot y minus the enemy list a dot y. And so if the square root of xdist times xdist x squared plus ydist times ydist square rooted, that sounds like hypotenuse territory to me, is tower 1 range. Did I set that? I know I was thinking about it. Now, all right, I'm going to need to decide what the range of my towers are. So let's see, I have a cost here. Let's set up a range. Tower 1 range. Let's say that you're about 50 pixels away. And tower 2's range, this is just going to be better in general. It's going to be 100. These numbers aren't things that you can mess with to try and balance your game later. Back in the alarm. So now, if it's less than that, that means I'm within range. And I should fire at this thing. So I'm going to create a game object that I'm going to fire at it. Projectile. It's a new game object. It's going to take that alarm's object's x, the tower's x. Alarm object y, the tower's y. I'm going to make this pretty small, so maybe 10 by 10. I could probably make it even smaller if I wanted to. Oh, and a color. I don't know. Let's go create one. Let's see. What color should a projectile be? Projectile color is let's combine red and green for this guy. Maybe give it kind of a yellowish color. Okay, so we've created the projectile, we've given it a color, we've placed it at the tower's X and Y position. So now we should need to give it a speed. Let's go 5. And now we need to give it direction. You may remember this from earlier games, but in order to use this, we're going to use the arctangent function, arctangent 2 specifically, so that we can make it work in all the different directions. So hn2, we need to give it the distance, the enemy list a dot y plus the alarm object dot y. And the reason those are negated is because the y-axis is upside down in most computer screens. Enemy list a dot x minus alarm object dot x. Whereas those are regular. Oh, and this is radians, so I better make it degrees. Semicolon. And I'm probably going to need to know what this thing is for collision detection. All right, that looks pretty good. Now the tower 2 is going to be almost the same thing. I probably should have figured out whatever these patterns are and made a separate function out of it, but oh well. We're getting close to the end of the tutorial, so you can make that if you want to. I needed to go one more out. So close that brace. Else if alarm objects ID tag is tower 2. Then I need to reset his alarm. Let's see, did I get all of those things? So check the type, check the alarm, for loop, check distances. This will be alarm tower 2 range. Creating objects. The projectiles are going to be the same for this one. Alrighty, that looks like that'll work. Let's try running that. Probably should have placed them closer now that I think about that. For future testing, I will move it closer to that. Alright, that one fired. We don't have collisions yet, obviously. Alright, it looks like they're working. Because it's checking all enemies, it will fire in all directions if there are multiple enemies. I'm okay with that. What you could do, in theory, is just terminate your for loop before you do the next check, and that would stop this from happening. So in here, if you actually find something, just set A to list max in here, and that'll stop this for loop.